The heavy ticking of the grandfather clock filled the stifling silence of the Hawthorne family's study. Its golden pendulum swung back and forth, a relentless reminder of time slipping away for Elise Carter. She sat at the grand mahogany table, her trembling fingers brushing the edges of the crisp divorce papers before her. Her chest tightened as she fought back tears, her vision blurring. "Sign it." The voice was icy, sharp as a blade. Across from her sat Eleanor Hawthorne, the formidable matriarch of the wealthy Hawthorne dynasty. Her sleek silver hair and immaculate navy dress exuded untouchable authority. Pearls gleamed at her throat, but her expression held only cold contempt. "You've disgraced this family long enough," Eleanor said, her tone calm but laced with venom. "It's time you leave quietly, with whatever dignity you have left." Elise's heart pounded so loudly she could barely think. 2 years ago, she had been swept off her feet by James Hawthorne, the charming, driven heir to the Hawthorne empire. He'd seemed different then, warm, loving, bold enough to defy his family's elitism. Or so she thought. When James first brought Elise, a black woman from a humble background, into the Hawthorne mansion, she felt the chill of Eleanor's forced smile. "A woman like you could never belong in our world," Eleanor had whispered to her that night. But Elise had tried. She endured the murmurs at high society galas, the snide comments about her appearance, her speech, her lack of polish. She loved James enough to stay until now. James, Elise's voice broke as she turned to her husband, searching for a trace of the man she'd married. He stood by the tall window, hands in his pockets, his tailored suit pristine. But his face was stone, his jaw tight. "Don't look at me like that, Elise," he said sharply. "You've made this harder than it needed to be." Her breath caught. "Harder? I gave up everything for Yumi friends, my career, my family. I thought we were building a life together." James scoffed. "A life together? Or a life you latched onto because you thought marrying me would fix everything?" The word stung like a slap. Eleanor leaned forward, her voice low and cutting. "You were never right for him, Elise. You don't belong in this family, in this world. Sign the papers, and we'll ensure you're compensated enough to start over far from here." Elise stared at the pen in her hand, her mind racing. "If I sign this, I lose everything, the man I love, the future I dreamed of. But if I don't," she looked at James one last time. "Do you really want this?" His eyes hardened. "You're not the woman I thought you were. Maybe my mother was right all along." Tears spilled down Elise's cheeks, staining her soft beige blouse. Her hands shook as she gripped the pen. The room felt smaller, the walls closing in. "They want to erase me, like I was nothing, like I never mattered." But a quiet voice inside whispered, "You'll show them one day." With a final breath, she signed her name. Eleanor's lips curved into a faint, satisfied smile. "Good girl. Now, gather your things. Someone will escort you out." Elise stood slowly, her knees weak. Her gaze lingered on James, silently pleading for him to stop her, to say something, anything. But he turned away. That was the last thing she saw before leaving the Hawthorne estate. The man she loved staring out the window, indifferent to her pain. As Elise stepped into the cold night air, clutching her coat, she didn't know how she'd survive. But what the Hawthornes didn't know was that Elise's quiet strength came from more than her love for James. She came from a legacy of resilience, and soon she would uncover a secret about her own familiar secret that would turn the Hawthornes' world upside down. If you're enjoying this story so far, don't forget to subscribe and tell us where you're watching from in the comments. 2 years had passed since Elise walked out of the Hawthorne estate, her coat wrapped tightly around her trembling frame, her signature still fresh on the divorce papers that shattered her world. 2 years since Eleanor Hawthorne smirked across a polished mahogany table and told her she wasn't good enough. 2 years since James, the man she thought loved her, turned his back, his cold indifference cutting deeper than any words. But the woman approaching the estate gates today was not the same Elise. This Elise didn't flinch. She didn't lower her gaze. She didn't beg for love or acceptance. This Elise had rebuilt herself, and she wasn't here to plead. The Hawthorne family had seen better days. Their investments had crumbled under a string of bad decisions. The once mighty Hawthorne name, a symbol of wealth and power, was now a cautionary tale in boardrooms. James sat at the head of the conference table, his suit impeccable but his eyes hollow. Eleanor sat beside him, her pearls flawless, though her grip on her teacup was tight. "We need this acquisition," Eleanor said, her voice sharp with desperation. "If Carter Enterprises doesn't sign off on this partnership, the Hawthorne legacy is done." James exhaled slowly. "They'll come. They have to." The double doors opened. A hush fell over the room as a woman stepped inside, her heels clicking against the marble floor. It was Elise, but not the Elise they remembered. Gone was the trembling, tearful woman in a wrinkled blouse. This Elise wore a tailored ivory suit that fit like armor. Her natural hair was styled in an elegant updo, and diamond studs sparkled in her ears. She carried herself with the effortless confidence of someone who commanded every room. Behind her strode a tall man with silver hair and a presence that seemed to shift the air. His bespoke suit spoke of wealth in every detail. Eleanor's eyes widened. "Charles Carter," the man said with a polite but distant nod. "Good afternoon, Mrs. Hawthorne." James's face paled. "You're her father?" "Yes," Charles said calmly. "I'm Elise's father. I thought it was time we had a conversation." Eleanor's voice sharpened. "Why didn't you reveal yourself sooner? Why let your daughter marry into this family without telling us who you were?" Elise stepped forward, her voice steady. "Because I wanted to be loved for who I am, not for what I have. But instead of accepting me, you judged me, mocked me, drove me out." Her eyes locked on James, who couldn't meet her gaze. "And you," she said softly, her voice trembling not with weakness but with controlled fury. "You stood there and let them humiliate me. You believed I was nothing without you. But the truth is, you were nothing without me." James flinched. Charles placed a folder on the table. "I'm buying out your company's debt, effective immediately. Carter Enterprises now owns controlling interest in Hawthorne Industries." Eleanor's mouth fell open. You can't." "Oh, I can," Charles interrupted smoothly. "And I will. But don't worry. We'll keep you on as advisors." Elise tilted her head, her calm gaze sweeping over her ex-mother-in-law and ex-husband. "Consider it my way of ensuring no one else suffers the way I did here." As the reality sank in, James stood abruptly. "Elise, wait. I was wrong. I let my mother influence me. I never stopped loving you." Elise's lips curved into a faint, almost sorrowful smile. "Love isn't silent when the world is tearing you apart, James. Love doesn't stand by and watch you drown." His voice cracked. "Please, give me another chance." Elise shook her head. "I gave you every chance in the world, and you taught me that sometimes love isn't enough." Eleanor's voice was a harsh whisper. "You think you're better than us because of your father's money?" Elise met her gaze with unflinching calm. "No, I'm better because I learned to value people, not their wealth, not their status, but their hearts. Something you never understood." Elise turned to leave, her heels clicking like the closing of a chapter. At the door, she paused and looked back one last time. "Thank you," she said softly. James frowned. "For what?" "For teaching me how strong I really am." That evening, Elise sat on the balcony of her father's estate, the city skyline glittering below. Her phone buzzed an email from the board of Carter Enterprises. "Congratulations, Elise Carter. As of today, you are officially CEO." She smiled, her tears this time warm and proud. Elise had lost everything once, but she'd rebuilt herself not as a Hawthorne, not as someone's wife, but as her own woman. And she would never let anyone take that from her again. If this story touched your heart, be sure to like the video and subscribe for more powerful, emotional, and surprising stories. Tell us in the comments where you're watching from. We love hearing your stories, too. Until next time, stay kind, stay inspired, and keep watching.